Hey guys, welcome to this episode of Jack's Business Talk. Today we're doing part two of of 10 things, 10 cons you should know about Pittsburgh. Mikey, you were the guest. Do you want to go first on this one?
This pertains to the buy box. And things I have learned along the way is watch out for the hills because there will be properties with steep steps. So maybe think about how that factors in during the winter. Also think about retaining walls because last I heard, depending on the retaining wall, it could be upwards of 50 to 70,000 in repairs needed. Also in certain areas, just be careful of the terracotta plumbing. Depending on the sections, that could get up to 20,000. So those are things that could be hidden. You got to make sure you inspect for that and also consider that if you do take on a property with those type of amenity or properties, property wise.
So, my first con of Pittsburgh is the weather. There's a lot of freeze thaw, and unlike Matt, who talks about the freezing effects, he doesn't talk a whole lot about the freeze thaw, which is can be more harmful because I'll I'll just use our infrastructure, which is another con in the area, is the fact that the ice melts, it goes under the ground and then refreezes and busts and buckles up the infrastructure. Well, imagine if you have a leak in your roof and the water's going underneath of the shingles or something and then freezes and then rethaws and more water gets out down further and then freezes. So you can see how the freeze thaw is worse than just a than the impaling freezing cold and then just going to the thaw season being done with it.
That is critical. I took notes on that. That's critical. I didn't realize that.
What's your number two?
Number two, lending. With the lower purchase prices, especially for single families, I was facing some challenges getting lending for lower purchase amounts. So if you're looking under 100,000 for a loan, I've had lenders straight up tell me, "Hey, I don't know how much more of these I want to do with you. I don't really make much off of this." Even when I reached
Mhm.
out to lenders from one rental at a time, they have said something similar where even for loans in the 100,000 range, this doesn't really excite us too much. This is something we're not really interested in doing. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, that was a huge thing for me is just finding lenders that want to work with you. Um, Taxes and expenses is another one. I'm not saying that we're bad across the country, but if you invest into the wrong borough or even in certain counties, it could be way more expensive and you could accidentally shoot yourself in the foot. And that's one of the things I'm running into with my first two properties is the taxes are dramatically going up because it's a good school district and the fact that they're revamping and redoing the whole sewage thing. So that's gone from the sewage and garbage are both one bill, went from $70 a month when I first bought the place to it's almost 200 per apartment now, and it's taken a huge chunk of my cash flow out. And that's why I'm kind of switching gears where it's just I'm not going to keep including that if they're going to keep raising rates like that. And it may honestly get to the point where I'm hoping I can hang. I'm not going to say word it that way. It may not make sense for me to hang on to these properties in the long term if they're going to keep eating into my profits like that. And I may end up selling them and buying instead of doing like I talked about in the previous video where I want to do a 50% loan to value and then go buy something else. I might just sell them.
I'm in the same boat. That first one I bought, I went off the 1% rule. I didn't study, I didn't learn the market. That was so much mistakes on mistakes. And I'm looking at the 4 year, probably get reassessed. I'm in a high millage rate area. I'm probably gonna have to sell that one because it's just gonna turn from a very small cash flow amount to negative in the
Yeah.
short term. So I'm in the same boat.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about the market conditions. And what I mean by market conditions is the fact that, we've kind of been beating around it a little bit, and we've already mentioned it a couple times in this video. But the big thing is, if you're looking for appreciation and growth on your equity without putting a ton of work and effort into it, you're not going to have it here in Pittsburgh because we're kind of the part of the gateway system into the Midwest. And with that, you have stabilization. You can put down in the comment section your thoughts and try to prove me wrong. I'm fairly confident in what I'm about to say, but I'm open to hear what other people have to say. But you can have, I think it's 3 out of 4. You can have cash flow, you have appreciation, you have stabilization, or I forget the fourth, but let's just focus on those three because those are the three important ones. You It's hard to have all three. If you can be happy with two, go with the two. Well, here you have stabilization and you have the cash flow. So trying to without forcing the equity, it's going to be very hard to build equity here.
When I look on the MLS and I'm running numbers due to the ages of the properties, I just put down, and Dion taught me this, just for make ready costs, you might want to be putting down 5,000. Just even if it looks turnkey, just to protect yourself, you might just want to put 5,000 for make ready costs due to the age of the homes. Even though it looks turnkey, as you get into it, you might discover some things.
Well, I'll give you a prime example of that, and I'm glad you brought up age of properties because that was one of the things I was going to bring up. The first place I bought was supposed to be turnkey, and I ended up sticking 15K into it. It was a duplex side by side. I stuck at least 7 in the one side and about another 7 in the other side just to get it up and going. So much for that being turnkey, right?
I've got hit too, where I think, hey, everything's gonna work out okay. Then boom, I get hit by the insurance. A list of repairs needed on the exterior. I wasn't expecting that. I had to pay for that. So that hurt. Then
Yeah.
other properties too, where I thought it was turnkey, or maybe it was the property management that I was dealing with in the beginning, but repairs after repairs. And looking back, I don't know if it was more the property management side, or I don't know if it's more the property side and it was a flip. Those are the things you got to take into account.
And my last one is is your legal and your zoning regulations. So it's not county specific and it changes borough by borough and it could change zip code by zip code. So like you could and I'll give you a prime example of what I'm talking about. But like let's say we're talking about I don't own properties here. I just know kind of like how it goes. Let's say we're talking about McKees Rocks. Okay. McKees Rocks has, I think it's 5 or 6 zip codes, and they are not the same. You have some that are more in a hoity-toity, fruity area. I like fruit. That's why I said that. But then you have some that are there are you have others that are in your meat and potatoes area, which is your blue collar workers. I'm totally turning this food related. And then you have some down by the tracks and stuff that are just your angry, mean vegetables and stuff that nobody likes that have different regulations than the previous two, your meat and potatoes and your fruit.
What about your seafood properties closest closer to the rivers?
Oh, you don't want to eat those. There's too much
Oh,
pollution in the rivers. No, rivers actually don't. It's surprising because you would think the rivers would be like a lot of the water problems, and they're actually not. It's more based upon what hills and what you have going on behind you. Like, is there a spring? Like, there's tons of springs in just this area in general. So you have to pay attention more to that than you do like the river itself. Just because the reason why you don't hear too much about massive flooding here in Pittsburgh is just because the city is very old and they have the super high banks and stuff that go. So that's why you don't hear a whole lot about massive flooding from the river. It's more like you have to stay away from your creeks and your streams and your the places that haven't been dredged and stuff that you have to worry about overflowing. It's
Yeah, on the MLS, I was looking at this duplex side by side. And when I looked at the FEMA map, it wasn't a flood zone. So I said, hey, why not just look into it? Look, what would a quote cost? It was $2,429 on top of the taxes, on top of all your 15%, whatever other numbers you add on top of that. And it just went from, hey, it might work to in the red.
Mhm. So do you have any others?
For cons, do you have some? I can, sorry, I can jump off of you. I'm getting ideas as we're going.
Uh, I think we hit them all, really. I can't really think of too much. We talked about weather, old age, uh, property taxes, the zoning regulations, infrastructure. Yeah.
For a new investor who is trying to decide on a market out of state, the returns that you get in Pittsburgh may not compare to, say, the returns you get in Gary, at least in my experience. When you
Huh.
factor in the age of the properties and you factor in all the other things compared to, say, a market like Gary, I think you might get greater returns in Gary. But for me, Pittsburgh fit for all the pros that we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's just that I've spent so much time learning Pittsburgh. I don't really want to expand off of that, maybe in the future, but for now, I just want to be tunnel vision in Pittsburgh, trying to network more, trying to get out there more, and that is the market I want to focus in on now.
Yeah, I feel the same way. You ready for part three now?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.